So picture this. I am in the second year of my PhD, and I knocked the door of the dean of the School of Engineering in Perugia. He doesn't even probably know me. Maybe yes, my surname, because my father was a professor. And basically I knocked the door and I say, I would like to organize this. I believe I can do it. Do you give me the permission to do it? And it was a kind of, it was really a moment. I think the dean looked at me like I was coming from the moon, completely crazy. But he saw the energy. He saw something in me in that moment. He basically said, Paolo, you know how these things work in Italy. We don't have budget. So if you wanted to do this, I'm going to give you the permission. But if you lose money, you pay for that. Wow. That wasn't really the answer I was expecting to get back. So basically, at that point, I started consolidating my assumptions about the summer school. I started putting together a business plan. And basically, I came up with the idea that, first of all, I needed something like 22 students to break even. From all over the world to be in New York for a week, 22 students to break even. I basically developed all the best worst case scenarios as we do in business. And I realized that that worst case scenario, I was basically probably losing something in the range of 20,000 euros. Plans do not work. I had a bit of money because I was doing consulting work and so on, not enough. So basically, and that's really the definition of resiliency, when you as a leader try to use all your assets and all your networks to basically address the problems you have. So basically, I needed the guarantee for money, and guess what? I knocked the door of my parents. He basically said, Mom, Dad, I really want to do this. I believe I can do it. I believe I'm going to regret if I don't do it. I think this is my plan in my mind. Worst case scenario, you give me 20,000 euros to cover the loss. And basically, my father didn't even think a second. He basically said, you go ahead with this, you make it happen, and we will support you if it's needed. That was an interesting moment, because basically what I realized is that, yes, I needed a lot of things to promote this internationally, to do what I wanted. I needed basically a website. I needed graphics. I needed a lot of stuff. And basically, I quickly realized that, yes, one option was to ask someone to build a website and give him or her 8,000 euros. I could have, paid a graphic designer for the flyers and all that. But basically, I was really, investing on these activities money I didn't have. So basically, that's where that's when my grandmother became useful. Because my grandmother, since I was a kid, always told me, Paolo, in life you're gonna have many friends and many people and family, but you're also gonna be alone. So you need to be able to do things alone. You need to be comfortable with being alone. And that's basically, from stupid things. So my grandmother literally obliged me to learn to iron. So I don't iron these days, but if I need to iron properly a shirt, I can do it. To give you a stupid example. So basically what I did here was I started learning about website design. I started learning about graphics. I did everything by myself. I started learning at that time about digital marketing because I needed digital marketing and these type of things. To cut a long story short, it went well. I brought 44 people to New York. So not only break even, but actually made a profit. And basically after that experience, I did run 5 of these programs with top universities in New York, including Columbia Business School and NYU. Now, what I learned, and this is not a quote really from me, is from Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's a very, very nice interview with him. Is that, yes, in life you can think about plan Bs, and in business schools we teach risk management, which is about plan Bs. But I believe if you want to to be successful at times, you need only to work on a plan A. And this was the case for me. There wasn't plan B, it was just a plan A. Something that I also learned is that with that experience, I kind of know I wasn't giving a shit about money. I wasn't giving a shit about me being a professor in New York or the director of the summer school. To me, there was just one important thing, and that was the name of my friend on that poster on a top international initiative. And that's where there are certain things in life that are gonna basically make you feel much better than money or other things. And I don't know if you are familiar with the famous pyramid about human needs, but the last one is where typically top executives, managers, achievers really struggle, which is a self-actualization. This means when you have a lot of money, when you're successful, when you are esteemed by people, then where do you find your happiness? That is a kind of something hard to hit. Then what? This is an interesting episode. So a year later, after this experience, and after basically familiarizing with marketing, I realized something, and I realized the importance of having a personal brand. And I realized that could have been a game changer for me as an academic to build my own personal brand. Because when you do research or when you are a professor, it's very hard to develop a competitive advantage based on number of publications, based on feedback from students. I mean, you're not going to be in the map if you're not at Harvard Business School, where journalists call you simply because they go on the website. So basically, I took a decision that my mother was really mad with me in 2010. By the way, I believe at that time my salary was around 1,600 euros. Basically, I decided that for 6 months to have an intern that I was paying from my salary 500 euros. So basically, I was giving out a third of my salary, more or less, to a young intern with a very clear mission. Basically, I said, look, I need to build a personal brand. And I want to basically be recognized as the expert for performance measurement and management. I want basically to basically be on the map of the top people in the world for this topic. So how do you do that? You do it in a number of ways. Of course, you boost your research and you do that. I decided I needed a book, and I published a book because that gives you visibility. But then I said, okay, I need basically to enter in contact with people who care about these things, who are influential. I always say to students, you post the things on LinkedIn, but if these posts are read by your friends and family, they are completely useful. You want, the relevant people, the influential people, to read what you write. So basically, this intern was paid for 6 months with a very clear mission. You are going to connect me on LinkedIn with all of the professors in the world that basically do what I do. And you are going to basically connect me with all the people in industry who have got senior positions that basically do what I do. This means when I'm going to post the next time that I organize an event, the right people are going to see it in the wall. And actually, by the way, this happened. I mean, 3 years later, when I was organizing the summer school in New York, I was approached by a professor from Harvard University saying, Paolo, I noticed that your initiative in New York sounds very interesting. If you want, I would be very happy to come. I had a professor coming from Harvard for free, simply because they saw a post on LinkedIn. Now, that specific person was added by this intern a couple of years before. And since then, basically, I've spent a lot of time building my personal brand as an academic. And again, that is something that is relevant today in any kind of business, to have a personal brand. And of course, networking. Every week I have time in my agenda for networking events, every single week. all the consulting work I do, a lot of the press I receive, a lot of the advisory board positions I have, they basically came to networking. At a certain point of your career, there is no way that you're going to apply for a job in the website. The right opportunities are going to come from people. We live in a people world. We can't forget about that. So networking. 2011, another interesting experience. So at that time, I was the president of a small club, a Rotary club. And basically, Rotary clubs, they do initiatives that very often are associated to service, to helping people, helping communities, and these type of things. They asked me to basically be the president of my club in Perugia, and I said, okay, I'm going to do it, but let's forget about fundraising 2,000 euros as we did in the last 20 years. If I do it, I want to do it my way. I want something bigger, and I want it to be on board. And for the first time, we're going to do an international project. So basically, I ended up liaising with an NGO, an Italian NGO working in Ethiopia. Basically, what I found was that in this remote village of Ethiopia called Akuber, beautiful place, but with a big problem because you have in this village about 2,000 people, literally in terrible conditions, and the closest hospital is 5 hours by walking. So basically, this NGO was working to basically establish a very small cottage hospital there to support the local community. And basically, the cost of the project was 60,000 euros. This small hospital was basically made of 3 rooms. And I committed to basically raise money for 1 room, so 20,000 euros. And basically I said, you know what, it's very hard to imagine, or to commit to something if you don't experience it. So basically I said, I'm going to raise the money, but I'm going to bring the money there, personally. That's what I did. I went to Ethiopia, just to give you an idea of the conditions. I mean, in this village, 2,000 people, about 2,000 people, 70% of the people have got HIV. So that's the type of environment. For about 10 days, I basically lived in a place where there was no water, no energy, nothing. I believe that's the easier description. And again, it was a life-changing experience. When you enter in contact with poverty and you experience poverty, it's mind-blowing. And something I realized, and this is really an invite to all of you, is that today there is a lot of talking about giving back. And I believe if we are in this room today, we probably have decent salaries. We probably have good jobs. We probably can make an impact with our knowledge, or with our means, or with our connections. So to me, giving back is not an option. It should be a moral obligation, which is something very different. It's a moral obligation to give back. And that's something that I started doing after Ethiopia. Basically, I looked at options, because you need to have a plan for that. What is going to be my way to give back? I found my way. I think my way to give back, and I'm very happy when I'm able to do that, is to inspire young people. If there is one single person in this room tonight that gets a bit of inspiration by me, that's basically my way to give back. And that's basically what I try to do around the world. I speak to many events every single time, and typically I'm paid for that. But every single time I'm invited by students, if they want me, I even go there and pay the traveling expenses by myself. So I think that's my way. Moving faster, I have 5 minutes left. In 2012, I believe another important event in life. I married my wife, Manuela, and today we have 2 kids, beautiful kids. And that again was, I think, life-changing for many reasons, but I'm going to basically share one, the main one, which is if I look at my lifestyle today. So in a good day, I work 10 hours. In a bad day, I work 17 hours. So last week, I believe I went to sleep in average every night around 1:15 a.m. I spend at least 9, 8, 10 weeks traveling around the world, doing crazy things. So I can go to give a speech to Bogota in Colombia just for 1 day, which means I travel 35 hours to speak for an hour, and I don't stop. So this is kind of to say that when you hit certain positions and you have a certain ambition, then basically life becomes heavy. And I believe it's very important that you have people, partners, family, whatever, around you that that you find a way to make it work. Because otherwise, you're not going to have the resiliency that you need for this type of careers. I think again something that really I learned in the last 3 years is that when you have kids, you need to make time for them. You want to make time for them. They need your time. So I think this concept of productivity is something really to be explored. I mean, if I look at what I do today in 10 hours, it's probably 40% more of what I was achieving 3 years ago in 10 hours. So maybe there is a learning element in that. But I think if we use the time in the right way, you can do a lot of things. And I really see this with my students. I mean, I am the MBA director at Imperial. I've seen women graduating from an MBA while being pregnant. I've seen people doing 2 jobs able to study at the same time. So this means that there is a way to do it. Probably it's about the way we use time, and this is interesting. I moved to London 8 years ago, and that was an interesting decision. And I think I would probably need another session just to explain what I believe I learned in London. But I'm going to mention and share a couple of things very quickly. The first one is long-term thinking and planning. So when I moved to London, at that point, I left Italy in 2012. I had an assistant professor position. I had started 2 companies, and I was doing a lot of consulting. This means I was doing a lot of money for the Italian standards, just to be clear. When I accepted to move here as associate professor, I lost money. And that was a really long-term bet. Basically, I said, there are certain things that I'm not going to be able to do if I'm based in Italy. There are certain dreams that I'm not going to be able to achieve if I'm based in Italy. So, long-term thinking, Paolo. Don't worry about losing 2K on your salary, because most likely, if you do the right things, in 3 years' time, you have 20K on your salary. And that's basically the big difference. So that kind of long-term thinking and planning, I think, was upon reflection, very, very important. The second one, this is another quote I love. I heard this quote in the US the first time. Then I discovered that there was a book, which I encourage you to read. And the quote is the following: "Is business as in life, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you can negotiate." And I'm going to basically explain this by sharing a very quick story. So in 2014, I moved from the University of East London to Imperial College Business School. University of East London is ranked, I believe, 100 or 100 something in this country. Imperial College London is number 10 worldwide. So that was the jump, okay? My salary increased a lot in the jump, and I remember the very first meeting with my boss. So the very first meeting, for day one at Imperial, my boss, the associate dean of the business school, invites me for lunch. And the conversation is about, this is what we're doing, this is the strategy, this is what we wanted to do. And basically, I let her speak for an hour. And at the end of that lunch, day one of my employment at the business school of Imperial, I basically said, okay, I really appreciate your all your introduction. She asked me, do you have a question? I said, yes, I have a question. The question is, how do I get promoted? Now, not a stupid question on day one. How do I get promoted? And since then, I have asked this question every single time I got a promotion. And in average, I get many promotions. I'm lucky enough. But this is important because when you ask that question to your boss, first of all, your boss is immediately uncomfortable. Why this crazy person, day one of being promoted, is asking me about the promotion? Basically, first of all, you send a very strong message about ambition. Second, basically you say, you know what? I don't give a shit about politics, I don't give a shit about openings, all that. You tell me what is strategically important for this organization. I'm not gonna basically negotiate on that. You fix the objectives. But if I deliver the objectives in the time we agree, I expect a promotion. And basically, since then, since I've started these conversations, my promotions have been flying. Because basically what I do something very easy. They give me the objective, I set my own personal objective, which is 30% higher. So there is no way I can miss their objective, because I set my own personal objective, which is 30% higher. So I hit for the moon, not for the stars, which is what they want. And then I deliver at least the stars. And if you're lucky, you deliver the moon. So that is, is something that, especially in this country, this is very different from Italy. But here, you can negotiate a lot. I mean, I have seen people, negotiating 40% of their salaries when they were promoted. Now, I have nothing against that if they can deliver value. So I think, if you're in this mindset that you can deliver value, then you should negotiate very hard. This is another rule. This was in the office of Piero, in a plate, and the quote is the following: if you enter my office with a problem without at least 2 solutions, you have a problem. Now, I'm not joking, I built a career on this. This means it's very boring when you are a senior executive to get your people coming at you saying, I have a problem, I have a problem, I have a problem, okay? That doesn't work. First of all, why you're sharing the problem with me? Probably I'm doing other things, and you probably know far more about that problem than that specific knowledge at that moment of time. So, think about solutions and then come and we discuss it. So a rule I apply for myself, I never sent in the last 10 years an email to my boss saying, we have a problem. Never done that. I always say, there is a problem. I think these are 2 possible ways to address it. It's a mindset, but it's going to basically completely change the dynamics, the professional dynamics between you and your line managers. And I believe it's very important. This one is another quote I really like. So this is Michael Jordan. Talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence win championships. So something I'm very proud of is I have a large team at Imperial. If I look at the last 3 years, I have been promoted 3 times, but every single person in my team has been promoted. And this is not the case of the other program teams at Imperial. This means you really need to work with your teammates, your team. And again, I think is something very important is that I really care about the professional development of my people. This means, at times you're not able to promote people. So I really work my ass to find another school here or somewhere else to basically give them a promotion. So when you have a team, you need to take care of them. I think it's very, very important. If you do that, people are gonna recognize that, you work better, and you achieve more, and then you win championships. Going to an end, what I have. Some success comes with sacrifice. I believe I spoke about that. The importance of mentors. I don't know, how many of you have got mentors? Raise your hand. Not many. You should have one. I have 3 mentors. This means I have people that I regularly talk to get advice on my future, my objectives, to get advice on how to achieve them. There is a very big difference between mentors and coaches. I like mentors more. Basically, mentors don't give you answers, but they give you the right questions. And that's very useful in life, when people give you the right questions. So, you know, think about mentors. Leading yourself is of paramount importance. So I studied leadership at Harvard Business School, a short program. And it was about leadership, and leadership is about many things, about leading people, leading change, leading innovation. But there is a very important element of leadership, which is about leading yourself. This means when you have objectives, when you want to be successful, you should basically understand first what I need to learn to get there. I mean, we live in a world where if we don't study, if we are not exposed to continuous education, or you don't go anywhere, you need to learn. Second, the people you need to meet, okay? And I typically apply a rule. And this is, again, not coming from me, but it's a quote from a friend, the former CEO of Microsoft Europe, Ian Mulfate, who's a motivational speaker now. Basically once he told me, you know, Paolo, A people bring A people. B people make C organizations. And the message was, Paolo, you connected with me, okay? I'm a big guy. Now, you should ask me to connect you with other people I believe are of the same caliber. This means as soon as you are connected with a couple, then you can expand your network very, very quickly. So, you know, again, networking can be very strategic. It can be, I go to a meetup event, and that works. Or I met someone I believe has got something unique. I'm gonna ask that person to introduce me other friends or colleagues that person believes are unique. A people bring A people. You don't get it wrong.